Around the year 1400, in one of history's greatest unsolved mysteries, an entire established European society completely vanished into the brutal ice. Over 400 settlers, complete farming communities, and heavy stone infrastructure were left completely abandoned. There were no mass graves found and no signs of warfare. The setting for this disappearance is a hostile, frozen expanse, dominated by an immense ice sheet 3 kilometers deep. To figure out how an established civilization was swallowed by the Arctic in the 15th century, we have to trace the disaster back to a calculated lie told 400 years earlier. The prime suspect in this historical tragedy is Erik the Red, a violent explorer forced into exile from Iceland in the year 982. Sailing west, Erik found an unforgiving icy landmass. Knowing no one would willingly follow him to a frozen wasteland, he engineered a deception to lure desperate settlers. He named it Greenland. The marketing worked. Hundreds of Norsemen set sail, expecting fertile valleys. 14 ships completed the brutal journey, only for the settlers to realize they were trapped at the edge of the Arctic. That false branding was the original error of the colony. It set up an inevitable collision between European hubris and a landscape that tolerates no mistakes. Instead of adjusting to the deep cold, the settlers tried to force a European lifestyle onto the tundra. They built traditional stone churches, raised cattle and sheep, and maintained rigid societal norms. This stubbornness created a fatal vulnerability. Because Greenland lacked timber, the Vikings were entirely dependent on imported wood and iron from Europe to repair their ships and homes. This chart tracks global temperatures. Notice the severe plunge downward starting around the 14th century, marking the Little Ice Age. Expanding sea ice physically blocked naval trade routes. Without shipments, the economy choked, livestock failed, and the isolated communities faced mass starvation. The cold alone did not kill the Norse settlements. They fell because they were structurally inflexible. They tied themselves to a failing climate by refusing to abandon European systems. While the European settlement starved, another group of people was thriving just miles away, in the exact same brutal conditions. The Thule people, the ancestors of the modern Inuit. Instead of fighting the environment, the Inuit adapted to it. They engineered sleek, specialized kayaks to master the dangerous, icy waters and hunt marine life. Rather than treating the vast snowy plains as impassable barriers, they utilized dog sleds, turning the frozen expanse into a high-speed transit network. Every hunted animal provided meat, thick furs for absolute warmth, and rich oil for lighting during the months of endless dark. Here lies the tragic irony of the Norse collapse. The Vikings regularly encountered the Inuit. The survival strategies were right in front of them, but European cultural arrogance prevented the settlers from adopting them. The Vikings were erased by their own rigidity, leaving the highly adaptable Inuit to endure as the undisputed masters of the ice. The vanished Viking Empire eventually drew Europeans back to Greenland in the 1700s. Searching for Norse descendants, the Danish missionary Hans Egede found only the thriving Inuit. Egede's arrival marked a turning point. Denmark established a monopoly on trade, built new settlements, and introduced a school system that marginalized traditional Inuit beliefs and language. Greenland's isolation ended during World War II. When Germany occupied Denmark, the United States stepped in, constructing military bases and radar stations on the ice to monitor enemy aircraft. Following the war, the island pushed for independence. Today, Greenland is a self-governing territory with a very strong modern economy, centered in its vibrant, colorful capital of Nuuk. Yet, even with modern infrastructure and hard-won political autonomy, the harsh underlying reality of everyday life on this island hasn't changed. Its fate remains entirely dictated by the ice. Today, Greenland is at the center of an existential threat that mirrors the Little Ice Age, but in reverse. Human-driven climate change. The ice sheet is fracturing and melting faster than ever recorded. This rapid thaw is disrupting ancient migration patterns, starving local wildlife, and threatening the very hunting traditions that kept the Inuit alive for millennia. But the receding ice also presents a dangerous temptation. As the permafrost pulls back, it exposes rich deposits of minerals and potential offshore oil reserves, offering massive economic wealth at the cost of further environmental degradation. Once again, the climatic conditions of the North Atlantic are shifting rapidly, forcing a new generation to make impossible choices about how they live and what they value. History shows us exactly how this environment operates. It spares only those who respect its rules. The only question now is whether modern humanity will adapt to nature like the Inuit, or aggressively ignore it and perish like the Vikings.